Technical difficulties. Oh my goodness. I had Twitch on in the background. All right, let's try that again. Whoops. All right, let's try that one more time. I was like, what is that playing in the background? Oh, it's the ad. All right, quiet. Hush, hush, hush. We're gonna connect back to Twitch. Try that again. All right, I'm gonna kill Twitch. Boom, and we're live.
Oh, welcome then everyone to this live stream shortly before the Kickstarter ends.
Yes, welcome everybody. I will turn on my webcam. Here we are. Welcome everybody. Welcome to our Kickstarter finale. As of current, we are less than $200 away from being funded. Thank you all so much for your support. I will turn down this music. Sorry, that is a little bit loud. As you can tell, I'm not a professional streamer. I'm working on it. So this will be a little bit ad hoc as we go through it. I am, of course, Kamikaze, Daniel Adams, lead developer behind Solar Warden. Andrew, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, and I'm Andrew, your sound design guy.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. So for this live stream, as we're closing out on our Kickstarter, we're so close. We're coming right down to the wire. Again, thank you guys so much for all of your support. I know a lot of you guys have adjusted your pledge amounts in order to boost us right to the end goal, and I thank you guys ever so much. You guys have been phenomenal and essential and a core part of making this a reality. Thank you guys so very much. You guys, if it wasn't for you, this wouldn't be happening. It's a proof to everybody out there to show, you know, the world that there's still a demand for all these space games, and a demand even for something different. I guess I'll just say it, just to be honest, I'm just so tired of Battle Royale games coming out. My love, of course, for games such as Everspace, Freelancer, Wing Commander, all of those types of games has always been like a big drive for me to make something. If I can even hold like a candle to something as phenomenal as that kind of a game, this is definitely what I want Solar Warden to end up being. Of course, throwing our own twist to it. We have additions that you guys have all probably played now with the demo. You have the RTS elements with it, and then being able to jump right into combat right away to take control and have that those same flight mechanics from the games you know and love. So again, awesome. Thank you guys. Oh my god, we just got it. Oh, we just got it. There it is. There it is. Unless my eyes are deceiving me. Chat, are my eyes deceiving me?
Yes, we are funded.
Did we just get it? Oh man, I wish I had some fanfare for the screen right now. I'll just pretend with my hands like coming down. We have some fanfare. Like, this is perfect. The music swells going on right now. Oh my god. Here, I'll turn this up for you guys. Thank you guys ever so much. This is amazing. Awesome. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Woo! I thought we would be able to make it before the stream, but it's better that we had it right on the stream, because this is an authentic reaction right now, and I'm kind of choked up right now. Oh, Chris Escalante, you make fantastic music. This is perfect for this. I hope you're watching right now. Woo! Man. I should yell to my wife to go grab me a beer. No, I won't do that. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness. Oh, sorry. I'm a little choked up right now. I didn't expect it to come this soon. Right in the street.
Yeah,
All right. So
another subject matter. Our mother game Unreal has its 20th birthday today.
yes, actually, that is a very fair point. So if you guys haven't seen Unreal, not Unreal Tournament, but just normal Unreal, the very thing that started this whole thing off, we had a message from them saying that, hey, Unreal, it has its 20th anniversary today, actually. So, again, thank you, Unreal. Thank you Epic, rather, for providing such an amazing platform for us to also build Solo Warden on.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
Without them, this wouldn't be possible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. So let's get started on the agenda. So, cheers, everybody. That's fantastic. Oh, Discord is going crazy right now. Woo! All right. This is fantastic. So, we're not going to close out the stream. Let's keep going with it. So I wanted to show off to you guys some of the we can actually get this out of the way right now. On the agenda today, I'll look at turning down the music because it's kind of distracting me right now. I'll have it really quiet in the background. So what we have that I want to show you guys, I have it in my notes here that I'm wanting to go through. I wanted to show you guys some of the additional features that we wanted to put in for also the demo, to thank you guys again. Thank you everyone for pledging your support. Don't forget, we shouldn't stop here. We do have the stretch goals that are announced and are available and up for grabs right now within 3 hours. We can do it. We have whales that are in the midst that might be able to help us out. So if you know anybody that actually wants to help pledge and help support for the awesomeness that is Solo Warden, we do have the stretch goals of the first-person cockpits. I think I had the pictures up for... I didn't actually have that ready. I'm sorry. First-person cockpits and joystick and HOTAS support. Or HOTAS support, however you pronounce that.
Yeah, that goes hand in hand.
Hand in hand, definitely. Oh yeah, so I did have the high-res screenshot of that. Here we go. So this is kind of what you can expect from the cockpit views of an Icarus fighter. This is something that we want to have with the MFDs all portraying ready for you, and have like a heads-up display maybe on top of this as well. But these MFDs as well. This is actually kind of a further back FOV that I took. Actually, it's about FOV of like 100 degrees rather than the standard 90. So this is kind of an exaggerated view a little bit in order for you to see more of the cockpit in that same setup. So this was like a static shot that I had with first-person view of an Icarus actually taking on one of the grubs. I actually removed it from this build, unfortunately, so I can't show that live. We'll actually pull that in as we go forward with... If we get actually the stretch goal, that would be fantastic if we can achieve that within 3 hours.
Yeah.
We will see. So that is something. Even if we don't get that stretch goal, this is something that, okay, for all of those guys that have played MechWarrior Living Legends, you guys know that we're also like big immersion fans. We're big simulator fans. We want this as well, but to get the freelancer support or the art support in order to make this happen, we need artists to help us out with this in order to make this happen. So this is why we need your support. This is why we wanted to even look at including this as a DLC later on. For those of you who are already set up as cartographers on your cartographer package, you can still upgrade your pledge now to that. You will get all these DLCs for free. The additional inclusions that we're going to be putting in for those DLCs is like additional ships. We're going to be extending out the campaign to further places beyond the solar system. I don't want to give too much away with the campaign, obviously, because that'll be rolled out as we build out the campaign. But feel free to shoot me any questions that you guys have with regards to the campaign or with regards to development. That's all open for discussion here, now, today. for this live
Yeah,
stream.
maybe you also have some great suggestions to make. So we are very, very eager to listen to all of that.
Absolutely. All right. All right. With the cockpits aside, wanted to talk about a little bit with the additions to the demo. What I noticed is actually one issue that I saw with the lens flare, actually for inside of the game. Maybe if you guys are actually playing. Right now I have the PDI skipping, so that's why you don't actually see the loading of it. But the lens flare with the sun in the background, you might actually see the ribbons here as we're moving around. But the thing that was actually breaking in the build, this is more of a visual bug.
Meteor cluster detected.
Meteor cluster detected. Was when you were actually taking control of any of your ships, the flare would actually be removed from gameplay. And streaming right now is actually causing my game to lag a little bit. So now you guys, in the next patch that we're actually putting out, you should actually see this proper lens flare and not just that, you know, yellow dot in the sky. So that was a bug on our side where we didn't actually have that sorted out. So we'll
yeah,
I want to go back
getting
into
the beauty
normal.
back.
Oh, yeah, having this full screen is causing my game to lag a bit, so I'm going to come out of full screen. Hopefully that improves it. Yeah, it does actually. That's so weird. Full screen in the editor with streaming really lags me. All right. Again, sorry. Like I'm not totally set up for this, and we're just going as we go. So the next big thing that haven't quite gotten into the build quite yet was the missile lock bug. So of course, you know, when you have missiles, I'll plop down I guess a meteor in right now. The problem that we were seeing with a lot of the live streamers that we were actually watching, or any of the Let's Plays, and you guys have reported it too, so thank you so much. If you guys find any additional bugs, please let us know in the bug chat, because we only have so many developers and so many people on our QA to be able to help us out. So if you guys come across anything that we might have missed, that would be greatly appreciated. So the bug that, you know, a lot of people have actually told us about was when you were actually taking control of your ship, and if you were actually doing a missile toward your ship,
Warning.
then
Meteor cluster detected.
that doesn't actually clear. Wow, this is really laggy on the stream. Oh my goodness. That doesn't actually clear your missile lock, so we're actually going to be looking at solving that right away. So we're going to be the thing that I had to put in for the patch was with dry fire. When you're actually dry firing to any of the meteors that you were actually homing in on. I'm not sure why this is pulling me away so far. The dry fire that you were seeing on the meteors themselves, it was actually going to like the final location of the actual meteor. So if the meteor actually was fast enough and couldn't actually or actually like outran where your missile was going to, then the missile would actually just like zigzag back and forth right in that last kind of location. And so we had to make a fix where it was actually if you were dry firing and you were looking at that meteor, then I kind of forced a missile lock on the meteor in order to force your missiles to that location. But the problem was that missile lock didn't actually clear if you wanted to dry fire to like a new location. So if you weren't actually looking at the meteor anymore, then your missiles would all try to redirect back toward that meteor. So we're actually going to be clearing that missile lock when you, of course, like dry fire to nowhere or you don't have a new target. So we need to, we'll be able to fix that right away. The other ones that we saw too was also like the breaks with the telepresence when you were dying. We saw this actually in Shivaxi's stream where if a ship was actually near death or dying at that exact moment, we actually have the sound going right now. Here, let's delete that meteor so we can turn off that music.
Yes, the soul of the pilot was pulled, or better, the soul of the Warden was pulled with the pilot to limbo.
Yeah. So as the pilot was dying, we actually don't have a handle for when the ship dies and you're trying to take control of the pilot at that particular moment. So we're gonna be sorting that out very, very shortly. We'll make sure to sort that out. A lot of the edge cases as well, with regards to like ship death, with like fleet groups not clearing and having a lot of issues related to like the fleet group itself should actually be displaying that it's actually being removed and going away. So like all of those should be sorted out as we deal with this. I think one thing that I'm noticing actually with the stream, maybe I'm actually getting some packet loss. I think I'm actually too high of a bit rate, as somebody was mentioning to me in chat. Yeah, that was it. Okay, 1 second. I will turn this down. Andrew, you want to tell us while I sort this out what additions we're going to be doing to the audio so we don't have some dead air?
You mean for the Mac Drive, or where were we right now? Kinda look
yeah,
at
well, like additional sounds that we're going to be doing for the future.
Yeah, sure. There, for example, there's the Mac Drive sound. That one is already ready. It only needs to be plugged in, and then
oh yeah,
we have
I can actually play
that.
those. I do. Let's play some of those Mag Drive sounds right now. Actually, you put them under Spaceship Mag Drive. There they are.
Yeah, right. That's where they are.
I hope these aren't too loud. Ooh, let's make sure that.
It shouldn't be.
Turned down a little bit.
I haven't boosted their volume yet at all.
So we got Mag Drive going up. Oh, that's cool. And then this would be the Mag Drive loop. And then coming out of Mag Drive.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Now, of course, we need more transitional sounds for the PDI as well. So when you actually telepresence into one of your pilots, there should be some audio feedback to that as well. And yeah, weapon readiness, also always a big theme, something that I expressively excluded in MWL because it was missing. And of course, Solar Warden will have to have that as well. That when you, for example, when your energy for your weapons is low, that you actually get, you have the visual cue, but you should also get an audio cue that, you're about to have all that energy, or that all your energy is gone and that you need to recharge.
Oh, with relation actually to the ship HUD, that was something that we wanted to talk to you guys about as well. The additions and stuff that we actually wanted to change with the ship HUD was one relating to the actual weapons that we were talking about, or that Andrew was talking about. We wanted to actually have a display for weapon groups. So we thought of actually having something similar to what we had for MWL, is having like a box located probably in one of the corners of the screen. We can actually move that around, and we'll have you guys vote on where you guys would actually prefer to have that by default. So we're thinking of having like a weapon group table, but with that, of course, with the Corvettes, the Corvettes might have like a long list of weapons and everything that would be activated and deactivated. So we'll need to sort out how we can actually sort that list, or maybe we'll even have a scroll box, so that way, you know, you'll be able to tab through some of those weapons and be able to activate them through your weapon groups, and those would set up with your weapon bindings as well, or rather button key bindings, I should say. So in that way you can set them up however you want, like on your mouse with whatever mouse buttons you want. Maybe you want them on your keyboard. I don't know. One thing I've noticed too with a lot of people that didn't actually discover it was your thumb button. That is weapon group 4, which we've set up for a lot of ships to have, you know, with the Tempest when I'm shooting around here.
Yeah, it's a secondary weapon, so to say.
Yeah, it's kind of like a tertiary weapon if you want to think of it that way. But the Tempest has it for its kind of turret, if you think about it. You can also do turret mode, you know, in the fighters too if you want, so you can actually look around. So if the Tempest is turning really too slowly for you, you can actually do that. Same thing with the Corvettes too, right? So we have the Corvettes that have... Let's actually jump into the Helios. The Corvettes too have their turrets and their autocannons actually on the thumb button. And of course with the other thing that we wanted to add in too.
Awesome. Thanks, Descendant Studios.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome. That's Descent Underground. Thank you so much, Eric. That's quite a pleasure. That's very awesome of you guys. But yeah, so we wanted to also include with one of the later editions of Unreal, and I believe it was 4.16 or 4.15. They actually added the ability to... It's an experimental feature right now for actually changing key bindings, because that was beforehand like a giant pain in the ass to actually have those key bindings set up. So we're actually going to be looking at sorting that out for you guys as well. So if you actually open up like your options menu, rather than controller layout, we're actually going to be setting this up so that it's actually like keybind. So you won't actually see this anymore, but it would be something more akin to what you're used to in other titles that allow you to kind of rebind or remap whatever controls that you actually want them to be. So like your fire groups will be able to change to whatever you want, or here, let's pull this up so you can see it. Other people, you might be wanting to change like telepresence back to the PDI from the ship, from tab to something else. So those will be all accessible to you to rebind them kind of however you want. So we'll be actually setting that up for the demo as well. Also, yeah, graphics options. Right now we had it disabled. Of course, we will enable this. We just didn't actually have time enough to plug that all in for the demo. So sorry about that. We had the workarounds for that if you wanted to change your resolutions. Those are all posted, but we'll be adding those in right away so that you can switch between like full screen, windowed full screen, or just pure windowed if you want, and then whatever resolution is native to your monitor will be exposed. But of course, if you want to customize that, then we'll let you guys, you know, do the properties setup with that instead. Additional things that we'll also do to the options menu too, with also the keybinds, is the ability to invert your pitch. I've had a few people mention that they would actually... The crazy people like to have a backwards control where down is up and up is down. But hey, whatever.
Controls for the win.
Whatever, you know, to each their own. I totally get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, however you play best, of course.
Of course, of course. I'm just completely joking. You guys aren't crazy. You're just backwards thinking. I kid. Relax. Oh yeah, so additional things also with screenshot mode as well. We're actually going to be looking at what we can do to add also roll support. A lot of you have been wanting to have the ability to roll the free camera in order to line up your shots better, so we're going to be including that into the shot as well. So there's a really cool thing that is hidden since I did disable the... we can actually maximize this. Since we did disable the console, I can show you guys still right now. There is a console command called high-res shot, and what's really cool about this is this super samples whatever your resolution of your game is currently. So whatever the multiplier is. So my screen right now is 1920 by 1080. So with high-res shot, I can actually do a multiplier of like 2, for example, and that will double it so that it essentially is like a 4K screenshot. You guys won't have to do it this way. I'm just demonstrating that this is the back end of how this actually all works, and this created like a screenshot for me, my folder, and I can show you guys in a second. That created a high-res one. I will open that up. And proof of concept. So since I didn't actually, you can see here is the full resolution of this guy right there. So you can have that like this multiplier. So what we're going to be doing with your high-res screenshot is in your options, we'll have like a toggle, so that way you can actually like change, if you wanted to, have a toggle for a higher multiplier if you really want. So if you wanted to get like, you know, a super sampled like 4K, 8K, whatever, this will allow you to actually take those really awesome, beautiful screenshots of your game from directly from the screenshot mode. And we'll also set it up so that you can actually like maybe take a screenshot. And for those of you who don't know, Steam screenshot button is actually F12. So you can actually press that from your Steam client. And we'll also look at exposing like a direct screenshot if you didn't want to use the Steam client for whatever reason. So we'll sort that out for you guys. But yeah, high res 32. All right. If you wanted a 32K, sure, you can multiply whatever you want to that kind of high res. Right. What additional ones? Oh yeah, controller support. So I don't know if any of you have actually, one second, played with the actual controller at all, but we have some very limited flight control characteristics in the game set up for this. Actually, I'm not clicked into this monitor. There we go. But we do have, not on the PDI, haven't gotten a chance to get around to that, but we will include additional controller support for the PDI, because we are also looking at sorting this out for, I think I disabled the look around.
Detected.
But we have throttle control that's on the controller right now, and also your different guns that you have. We also have the ability to switch between drift mode. Wow, this is really laggy. I'm not sure why this is so laggy. But we do have limited controller support. Those are all exposed. I will be actually plugging those in as much as we can, because we do want to submit a build to Microsoft for Xbox. So we're looking at providing this also onto consoles as well. But this will be slated for, you know, immediately after release. So we're going to be focusing primarily on PC release first, and that'll come out right away for next year. We're aiming for end of June in 2019. But controller support with that as well, so that way it works also with Windows if you prefer, you know, play on a controller, on a controller or whatever kind of controller input that you might have. And again, yeah, with the joystick support, even if we don't get to our stretch goals as we're plowing ahead now for the final 3 hours, we wanted to still provide joystick support, but if we can't get that as a stretch goal, that won't be a priority for us. We will have to look at including that post-release, or depending how our layout of the rest of the development of the game goes. We will let you know. Of course, subscribe to our newsletter. Go onto SolarWardenGame.com, SolarWardenGame.com, not just SolarWarden. SolarWardenGame.com newsletter will have the highlights of all that. We'll also be moving over to another platform which has... I need to turn off my phone because I am in the middle of a stream. Sorry about that. Power off. We will also be moving over to another platform that actually has a lot of awesome capabilities to show what we're going to be doing for the later on progression of and development of the game. So stay tuned for an announcement for that. That'll actually be coming up shortly, hopefully this week. We will be sorting out a additional page over there. So that way we're actually going to be setting up live streams and development live streams every week. So that way I provide you guys with development updates, and hopefully I resolve this laggy behavior that I'm having with my editor. I'm sorry. We didn't thoroughly test this before we started. Again, I apologize. But we'll sort out and show you guys more development updates as we go. So like additional bits that we're going to be doing for the game. And yeah, let's actually talk about the prepping for alpha. So one thing that you guys have mentioned as well, I can actually plop in the object for it. Sorry, I have a hard time multitasking. The actual bits that you guys were actually talking about was having repair and also fleet construction. So we wanted to try to get that in for the demo. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to it in time. But we're still, of course, wanting to produce this for our campaign, where you're going to be having your funds coming in from every month. So as the timer actually ticks over, I should re-enable the time dilation. So we have the time dilation showing you guys how you can fast forward, very similar to XCOM, where you can actually like fast forward time if there's a lull in your campaign and nothing's going on, no meteors are coming in. It won't be like the waves that you see currently. They'll actually be coming in on a random interval, and depending on where you are currently in your campaign, will determine what kind of like giant meteor clusters that are actually going to be coming in. Or maybe it's not a meteor cluster, maybe it's something completely different. Whoa.
Yeah. After all, you will also need time to sort out your strategy layer, to look at what contracts you want to accept from which country, and build out your tech tree. That also requires time, so there needs to be downtime and not one meteor shower after the other.
Exactly. Also, with your campaign as well. There we go. We got the dry dock. So, being able to actually build in different. Oh, is this not compiled? There we go. Mesh materials weren't compiled. There we go. So, you would actually be constructing dry dock facilities such as this guy right here, which would actually construct your larger vessels. So, other than the actual hangar, you would actually have the availability to build and construct stations similar to this guy right here, where I can actually just plop it in, show you real fast. Some of the larger vessels, such as like the Hyperion, actually. I'll drag that guy in. So this will allow you to construct your larger vessels as you move forward in the campaign. So you won't have to actually have these guys. Well, actually, specifically the larger vessels will have to be constructed via dry dock, as you can see here. And of course, this Hyperion that you see here, this guy has a giant fixed railgun in the front.
Yeah, a sound I still have to make.
This guy is not quite finished yet. We had him in a few videos, but we gotta finish up setting up the rest of his weapons in the proper order. But yeah, fleet construction and fleet repair. So the idea with the campaign is having you force the ships back to either the dry dock itself or back to the hangars themselves. We were also thinking of having, very similar to like a typical RTS, like StarCraft or whatnot. You'll have like these kind of robotic drones that will be able to fly out and actually do some base building. We're thinking of also having those drones to actually act as repair units as well. So they'll actually be able to repair your units on the fly if they're out and about. And if they're within range, but they'll be a lot slower than actually taking them to a dry dock. So you'll be able to have them on the fly.
This is not just for PC, but PC will be first. But we are already in contact with Microsoft for an Xbox One port.
Yes. We were just saying that a few minutes ago. Yeah, we're going to be doing an Xbox port for this. Immediately after our PC release. We're already setting up controller support, so that way we're actually going to be developing for the Xbox as well. We just have to make sure that we're able to submit a build for that to Microsoft and be able to get their development kit in order for us to keep working on it.
Yeah, you got that right, Einstein. Sony is indeed annoying.
I'm not going to say that out loud. I don't want to ruin any relations with Sony before we get started with them.
Yeah.
But Xbox is definitely first, and we will look at expanding our repertoire to other consoles as we go forward. Switch was already mentioned for one of them, and we'll look at even PlayStation as well as we're developing and going through. All right. So fleet construction repairs, that was covered. we also wanted to look at also with customization. Let me open up. I had all these disabled in the menu, so I'll actually re-enable those now. Andrew, did we have any other questions, or did you want to share anything additional with the... Oh, you should actually talk about additional bits that we're going to be doing with the voiceovers.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, voiceovers, as so far all you have heard, that have been Syn's voices, but since Syn's voice can't emote all the way, of course we will need voice actors at some point. So for the pilots at least. For the Betty sounds that we have right now, it's actually pretty much perfect. Yes, Jonathan Marcus is great. Of course, he will play a role in all of this.
All
I mean,
right.
he hijacked our Kickstarter video.
Yeah, that Jonathan Marcus, man. Hanger button. Let's re-enable that. I think I'll keep the launch.
Yes, but there will be
right.
fully voice acted wingman interaction, and of course for the leading characters in the campaign, that's also going to happen.
Oop. We don't want to do that. We want to go to the time dilation.
Hanger.
Yeah, I'll get to the hanger 1 second. I'm just re-enabling all the buttons that I disabled.
Yeah, everything that we disabled.
All the things that caused a lot more bugs. I know mag drive is a big issue, and I will be addressing the mag drive. We're actually going to be looking at overhauling a bit of the mag drive, because I'm really not a fan of how I actually implemented it in the first place, and I know a better way of setting up our expedited, fast travel, you should say, on that. And of course we do, you guys probably saw with the video, we do have the wormholes as well, and we'll need to sort that out and make sure AI doesn't actually get foobarred when they're being pulled into the wormholes. But that's super advanced technology, and you'll see that later in the campaign. Yep. Right. That should be all I need to do. So let's... Oh, wow.
Well, I guess... I mean, the Mac drive won't be available from the beginning as well. That's also something you have to build to.
No, Mag Drive will be available right at the campaign start.
Yeah.
So that's already a technology that the Solo Warden already developed. It's more of the Mag Drive itself for the player to understand the mechanics of it. We're actually going to be having like your tutorial mentor telling you how to use Mag Drive and go from A to B and places like that. Maybe I should actually minimize this. Maybe that'll free up that should work.
Yeah, but you won't be able to use it willy-nilly because it will cost resources at that point.
Oh yeah. So with Mag Drive, that's a good point. Mag Drive right now in the demo is currently set up so that it's like unlimited fuel and you can do whatever you want with it. But we want to set it up so that now that I actually have time dilation sorted, you can actually set up your fleets to go to certain I need to disable this. But the idea is actually having the fleets not go into Mag Drive right away when you're actually right-clicking on a destination that's really far. But they would actually be doing like a normal move command instead. And you would be actually able to use time dilation up here to speed up the time in order for them to get to their destination faster, rather than forcing them to use Mag Drive. That way it actually kind of helps the meteors come in. As you can see here, if I turn up time dilation, you know, they would be coming in. I think I actually disabled it because I disabled all of time dilation. I need to re-enable that. I need to find where I disabled that. It's not very good for this demonstration, I'm sorry. But the idea, if you can imagine this, the meteors, everything would actually be increasing in terms of like their velocity, of course, because like you're accelerating time. So as you're commanding your fleet around, you're going to want to manage like how much Mag Drive fuel you're actually going to be sending them to. So, you know, if the meteor is like, you know, very close to coming into the atmosphere, and you don't have time to spare, you're going to want to use Mag Drive in order to get your fleets to that destination faster. Otherwise, you can actually conserve your fuel and just have them fly at regular velocity, and you can just speed up time in order for them to actually reach their destination and intercept those meteors as you need to, thus conserving your resources a little bit better as you're going through. But yeah, let's stop that. We should also have geosync. We talked about that actually in a previous video, where you should be able to have your fleets geosynchronous to wherever you want them to. So as the Earth kind of rotates with, you know, time dilation, you can see here with as I overshot with the mag drive. Let's have them hold position. They should be, there we go. They should be now geosynced to their location, and with that they should also be, I need to fix this with time dilation, their waypoint command needs to be updated with their last position. So that'll all be sorted as we get time dilation all sorted with their features as well. Alright. Where was I going? Oh yeah, customization. we got sidetracked here, sorry. So
yeah, we have a question actually too from Kimidesu.
Yeah, what's up?
I'd say kind of want to answer the second one first. How does research and unlocking tech work? Think in that case, Kami, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'd say think XCOM in that regard. Mm-hmm. So you spend some amount of your funds, and it will take some time to research it and unlock it.
Yes, exactly. So, but there's a catch to this with some of the research, and this kind of plays into what we're wanting to do with some replayability factors with the game. So, of course, with your funding of your different, let me clear out the clouds. So let's say you had, you know, the affinities with some of the, I'll deselect the fleet so that goes away. Let's say you had affinities toward like Russia, China, and the United States. Let's take like, you know, the major three sort of like first world countries that would be funding you. The main caveat with the research, so very similar to what Andrew said, the baseline would be like you're researching laser technology, for example. So you're going to be researching like laser weapons, heavy lasers and whatnot. Those would unlock that whole kind of tech tree for you to build those specific types of weapons. The bit that would actually be a subtle change with that is you're actually going to be doing a research bidding war between different countries. And what that would mean is, like, we would have, you would say, let's say, you would want the United States to, you would fund the research to be done in the United States, for the reason being is because each one of the different countries would actually have a different bonus for that technology. For example, like the United States might have, for instance, let's say better heat sink capability for the lasers, which means that they would be able to actually not drain as much energy when you're actually firing them. So you'd have like a slight bonus if you did it with the United States in regards with that. But let's say Russia just wanted pure damage, right? So they actually said like, oh, instead of, you know, X amount of damage, it's X amount of damage plus 2 like per second or whatever. So you have, and then maybe like China would have something completely different where their refire rate is faster or something like that. So in that way you have a choice to then fund back into your countries that you actually are aligned with. So if you're actually choosing, you know, the United States over Russia and China, of course that would boost your relations with the United States, and consequently it would actually lower just a little bit, lower your relations with the other countries that didn't actually get that that bid or that that amount that you actually spend toward researching that technology. So that's something to also consider with your long term with the game, but it also affects your core gameplay as well. So you got to keep in mind, you know, what do you value most currently in your campaign? Do you value more of the actuality of like the bonuses that you're gonna get? Like maybe I want Russia's damage, but I don't really care that I go fall a little bit with the United States because I'm really good with them, or you know, I really need to keep Russia, so I need to make them happy. Otherwise, they're going to join the Aegis of Terra, and they're going to be starting to fund them rather than fund me. So that's another kind of diplomatic tie-in to the game that you'll actually see with that. That actually ties well with what we'll be talking about with contracts. Oh, I think I actually disabled this. I think I turned all of these off. Oh no. I need to open those up again.
Oh, yeah, and then another question from Constantine. How close can you get to the Earth? Don't touch the atmosphere or you burn up.
Oh yeah.
That's as close as you can get. Our ships are not re-entry capable, so
no.
If you get into the atmosphere, you will just die.
I'll take control of an Icarus right now. Oh, I don't enable the clouds. I think I noticed this actually with some of our screenshots that we had. Oh well.
Yeah.
Let's just fly into the atmosphere anyway. This is going to take some time. This Earth is really big.
Well, you can mech drive the ship and it will be there instantly, and then it's just a hop to get down there and burn up.
Oh, there we go. I'm entering the atmosphere. Oh noes. So these ships are not atmosphere capable. So don't try this at home. So it will, as you're flaring up with your ship a lot more. Now let's go into turret mode and watch this. Woo! Oh noes! Oh noes! The other edition, I don't we didn't actually plug it into the, oh no, there we go. Oh noes! And ship is dead. Oh, the AI was trying to take control. And dead. AI was like, no, I don't want to burn up in the atmosphere. Alright. Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to show you guys as well was in relation to the mag drive. I'll actually escape out of that and show you what we had sorted for that. Oh, actually, I can show you better in the visualizations for it from the ship. So we didn't actually sort this out properly for the demo because there's a scale issue that if things are way beyond scale for the engine to handle well, and there's like huge floating point errors that I didn't actually realize with the scale issue. When you're actually activating your augmented reality for mag drive, this shows you the Earth's whole magnetosphere. And that should actually that'll be something that I'm going to be fixing for the demo as well. So you guys are missing out completely on seeing how the magnetosphere is actually being pulled down into the poles of the planet, right? So you actually see, you know, we want to get in, of course, the interaction between the magnetosphere and the aurora borealis, so that those would all line up. We'll actually get more visuals for that, so that way you can actually see how they're interacting with the poles, and that'll be actually a really cool visual for everybody to see.
Yeah. I think it's missing right now.
Yeah. But I'll cheat and kind of show you this, how we're doing this right now. I can actually select the Earth and just go really far out. Ooh, that's really far. Let's turn off that wireframe. Maybe the ground. There we go. Line that up a bit better. So the idea with the magnetosphere, if you guys are all, I think it was the Van Allen belt, am I not mistaken? Where getting past the radiation shield of the planet. So check that out. So that is the magnetosphere in, you know, a pseudo setup of how we want it actually displayed. You have the what's called the bow shock here. So if the sun is actually currently out there throwing radiation directly at the planet, you know, as you can see, my flare is in the background there, breaking the illusion a bit. Oh no! With the sun bombarding the planet with all this kind of crazy radiation, it actually interacts with the magnetosphere right and hits the magnetosphere and creates this what's called the bow shock, and you see actually this huge flare of like X-rays and gamma rays that all kind of get deflected around the actual magnetosphere. So the idea with MagDrive is only capable within the setup of the magnetosphere. So you can see here it actually creates, relative to the sun, it actually creates a tail behind it. So you can actually, in this entire bubble, you will be able to actually traverse anywhere within this bubble without being bombarded by crazy radiation and thus having your pilot die and your ship actually being lost into space. So we'll actually, this is where we have the boundary of the immediate playable area around Earth. Until you actually research and go further into your campaign and have more radiation shielding, so that way you can actually go beyond certain elements and then have those set missions for the main story campaign to go to further places like the asteroid belt and also the Jovian system. We're going to be expanding on the story campaign, and we'll explain those as we go further out into what we're going to be doing with that. But in essence, also, and I guess we can talk about it here, is be wary about the aliens constructing a moon base. They will eventually, in your campaign, look to... Where is the moon here in my selection? They will actually grab a hold of the moon and start building a base of operations and start launching campaigns against your defenses from the moon. So in order for you to actually take out that particular moon base, you'll need to wait until the moon is within phase. So setting up your time dilation where the moon is actually orbiting the planet, and have it in phase with the magnetosphere in order for you to safely traverse there and without your pilots dying of radiation. So that'll be something that you'll need to consider as you go forward in the campaign.
Okay, question. If it becomes fair enough, will they launch the moon?
Well, you know, the Earth did have, you know, the giant, well, I think it was 2 planetoids that collided, and thus the debris of that created our moon, right?
Yeah, right.
There will be...
I think that from their base, it's beyond their technical capabilities to launch the moon at us.
That actually is good to lead us into the mega meteors. We can talk about those. Yeah, let's.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's hide those
We're
better.
now
Actually,
getting to the descent element that we have in our game.
shout out to our descent listeners and watchers here. Thank you so much for hosting us as well. We'll disable the visuals of this. All right. So what I wanted to, let me grab one of the ships here. So the idea that we had, and we laid this out in our Kickstarter as well, was the idea of the mega meteors, and that is actually these giant guys right here. Let me zoom out a bit on this guy. So you can see here, relative to a ship, actually let me set myself up so I'm jumping into a ship right away, and I don't need to go through the PDI. Actually, let's just go through the PDI. Am I crushing any ships here? I don't think I am. Alright. This might be a bit laggy still to fly through it. Ugh. Oh, my stuff is really laggy. And they're already trying to shoot the mega meteor. So the AI we'll set up. We'll try to set up the AI so that they're not this dumb on trying to attack the mega meteor. But the mega meteors are going to be like so dense in terms of like normal munitions, except for, you know, giant rail cannons like what's on the Hyperion. Here, let's actually move this out of the way, so that way they're not actually trying to attack this thing. Give me 1 minute here. There we go. And let's set myself up so that I'm flying an Icarus inside of here. So the idea, along with all the other regular meteors, the mega meteor is also going to be looking to impact the planet. But these things are so huge, they cause a extinction level event. You have to neutralize these things. Neutralize doesn't necessarily mean destroy. You can, if you want. But the mega meteors, along with all the other meteors, can also be halted and captured. So talking about this will be one of the next things that we can talk about in the about the campaign, is having your ability to capture asteroids and actually mine their resources, right? So you can actually look at flying and actually having your kind of drone set up. This mega meteor is flying really fast. I should actually be having my thrusters relative to that. But you can see here we actually have a tunnel that allows us to fly directly into it. So you can actually fly directly inside and combat. Oh, we actually have aliens that are actually inside here. Uh-oh. This mega meteor is flying too fast though, so I need to sort out their... I need to sort this guy out so he's not flying so quick. But that'll be something that we're actually going to be sorting out too. So when you're actually within orbit range of the mega meteors as well, you'll actually be switching over to more of a direct 6 degrees of freedom movement. We might have that actually as a toggle. Because those areas are so tight that you're actually just going to want to be able to just press just W a little bit for a thrust forward. It would handle very much like a first-person shooter, or Descent itself. So it's a hark back to that same setup. So in that way you don't have the throttle control that you had with normal space flight outside of it. Of course, that'll be available for you to toggle if you wanted to have that direct control. With that, I think we actually had a similar drive with that, actually, with our tanks and MWL, right? I think that was the thing that we did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had tank controls with that. You remember the original tank controls? So that way you actually pressed, I think it was K? It was K or L, where you switch between throttled mode and then press and hold.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
I think the mechs had that too, but it wasn't as good.
Well, we re-enabled this, so mechs can now do that as well.
There you go. So
actually, mechs do it better because in MWL a tank will always speed up to max speed. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
What throttle setting you're on, they always go.
So you can see here, you can actually press L to turn on your light. That's still available right now in your in the demo already. But you can actually do that, and that will actually be useful when you're actually diving into. Oh, is this guy shooting through the wall? Why are you shooting through the wall, buddy? Oh my goodness! Die! But yeah, you'll have all of these larvae that are actually in here. I gotta sort out the collision in here. No! Why are you flying through walls? I can't shoot through the walls, but you can fly through the walls, you bastard. But you'll have the very similar descent feeling inside of these. Oh, look, I can fly through walls too. All right, that's good enough.
Okay.
This is why we haven't released the mega meteors. So very similar to, as my music is actually ramping up here, very similar to Descent, you'll be needing to fly down into the core of the asteroid and actually planting a nuclear device or a nuclear bomb with one of your fighters. Planting this and then getting the hell out of Dodge. Or you can actually take, some of your bombers directly inside of the mega meteor. Wow, my game's getting really laggy. You'll actually be able to take one of the bombers directly inside of it and then actually just launch a nuclear missile, actually, or a nuclear bomb directly inside of it, and thus just doing a kamikaze run if you want. But the more pilots that you're going to be sacrificing via telepresence, the worse the morale of those pilots become, and you have a risk of losing out on those pilots. They may go AWOL on you, so bear that in mind as you do certain things like that. If you're going to be, you know, using pilots as fodder. A lot of people, I don't think you would want your commander to take control of your brain and go directly into a kamikaze situation, and thus you die from it. All of the other pilots would be very wary of doing that too.
Yeah, especially since there is no defense against this.
Exactly. Do we have any other questions? Sorry, this is so laggy. I wish I knew why this was so bad.
Right now, no questions.
All right, cool. All right, so I wanted to also talk about what we wanted to do with country and funding. Here, I can delete this guy here. Turn back the PDI so that it's on. I think I actually disabled the menu for this. I'll have to look at where I had it disabled. So with funding, we kind of touched based on that a little bit with the Kickstarter campaign, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate with each one, very similar to like how XCOM actually deals with it. The funding is actually going to be all separated via country. So depending on what kind of missions and what kind of affinity you actually have for those particular countries. I should actually look at where that menu is, give you a better idea of what I'm talking about. Where is the funding menu? Of course, with better affinity and as you're doing really, really well with those countries, as you go further on down your campaign, they'll actually be providing more and more funding for you as every month actually goes by. So it's a very similar kind of feel to XCOM and how they dealt with their campaign. So of course, performing missions for them, you might actually have contracts from them saying like, hey, I want you to go and capture an asteroid or capture this asteroid, and specifically like a mega meteor, for example. Maybe you've, you know, dealt with the first one and hey, that one's great, but you know, we can actually deal with other ones now further on. Even some mega meteors might be held back and actually be beyond the magnetosphere so that you can't actually get to them, and those are staging points for the aliens. So it's almost like their bases that they're using, or giant like siege towers, if you want to think of it that way. Like a siege weapon, where they're actually constructed that base, and they're actually holding back and consolidating their forces as they actually build up more things. So as the meteors are also going to be in orbit around the planet as well, the mega meteors that are actually giant, you'll actually have some time to see them come in. They won't be popping in so close to the planet because they're so big, and they'll be a lot more visible to any ground telescopes or space-based telescopes that you're also being set up. That's also very similar to, as you can see, like the waypoint satellites that we have here for the visibility. You'll be able to actually deploy other satellites. We'll actually talk about the defense grid a little bit later on, but it's the idea of deploying anything that you have with your defense grid, anything that you can actually see visibly here. This is actually actively, for instance, scanning the sky from this particular area, so any like sort of meteors that are coming in from this direction should actually be seen this far out. Otherwise, they're actually at a risk of coming in a lot closer, like this one down here was. So this one is actually like coming into South America. But yeah. So sorry, I got kind of off track here with the funding.
we have a question right now.
Oh yeah.
Will there be diplomacy between countries we have to take note of? Clarifying, like say, under-table funding from one country to let a meteor pass by us and slam into a rival country.
Yes.
Yeah, that is actually something that is very likely to happen, because the attack of the aliens is secret. The countries that are funding them, they will try to pull shenanigans.
That's exactly right, actually. And
They
this
will
was
offer you. They will offer you. They will offer you nice stuff, and they might say, "Well, we will give you this if you let this meteor hit our our enemy."
this was a question actually I posed to. I didn't actually. I thought I had the screenshot ready, but apparently I don't. This was something that I posed as a hypothetical on Twitter. Actually, I think over a month ago. It was the hypothetical of a lot of the other nations, like the United States and other countries like that, wanted to have a meteor come in and actually hit and impact and wipe out North Korea. But China was actually looking to offer you funding enough to actually construct a new corvette in order to save North Korea. So the dilemma was let North Korea get destroyed by a meteor and have increased affinity with all other nations, or save it by any means necessary, and also getting additional funding from China, but then of course lose affinity from other nations. So I was actually quite surprised at the result of that, and it was actually, I think it was 70-30 to save North Korea. And I was like, hey, that's awesome. I guess we're wanting to save our fellow man, and also I guess get a Corvette at the same time. So yeah, there will be exactly missions like that where there will be the diplomatic dilemma of whether or not you want to see
and
countries
dilemmas of your own,
and
dilemmas of your own morality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great question, actually. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Man, I look at it's just interesting. Just a side note, just looking at the difference between, like, you know, South Korea is just so lit up on the dark side, but North Korea is like all very dark, except for Pyongyang. Yeah. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Pyongyang. Chat, let me know if I'm butchering that pronunciation.
I think that's fine.
No offense to North Koreans, by all means. Like,
nope.
I'm just saying, it's very very interesting to see the dichotomy between the two Koreas. Right on. What was I? Oh yeah, I was digging out the funding menu. Fill the dead air for me, Andrew, if you can, while I'm looking for this. I need to organize these better.
Right. What can I talk about right now?
Well, what are you going to be doing with the ship weapons?
With the ship weapons?
Yeah, we actually had comments about balancing and not enough oomph in some of the weapons.
Well, yeah, about that, of course. Since our style choice is to do a very low pass sound. For weapons to have more oomph, that would mean that you won't then hear the explosions, because it's all a very limited dynamic range, and I have to balance that. So weapons probably get a bit less oomph, so that you still have explosions to listen to. That they don't completely get overplayed all the time.
All right.
And I see how that rule, of course, will also be broken, because for laser weapons now I actually increased the viable frequency range by quite a bit, because they just suffer too much when they get their full load pass treatment. They get to, laser weapons, they have a lot of high frequency sounds to really make them work. Let's just say it that way. And for that, so that they actually have the right amount that you notice them enough, and that they are not too silent and all of that. They need to have an expanded frequency range that goes beyond that of the projectile weapons and the missiles. So yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that basically Battlestar Galactica did as well. For example, if you remember that show, and if you remember a Cylon fighter pass by, that always sounds the same. It doesn't matter where that thing is. If it's in deep space or on the planet's atmosphere, Cylon fighter, if it passes by, it always has the same sound. There is no low pass effect to that. So they broke that rule as well, if necessary, because if you have only low pass sounds, it's also just a too boring a sound environment to work with and to actually listen to.
Great. Yeah, that's actually totally
why
true.
are there any explosion sounds other than your own ships? Rule of cool.
Rule of cool.
Because, yeah, you want to hear that. We all want to hear that. Sounds in space are cool, even though we know that they are not realistic. We're not going for full realism here. This is style and choices.
All right. So here was that's going back to the funding that we were talking about. The idea that we're actually going for with this was kind of a mixture between having similar to like the old school XCOM where you had like a list layout of this. You're seeing this right on the stream? I hope. Did you have the stream up, Andrew, so we can verify?
Yeah, I have the stream, but of course I'm a bit delayed. So
okay.
Yeah, I see the menu you have right now. Yeah.
And the XCOM one. All right. I hope that's properly on the stream. Let me double check. Yeah. Okay. It's showing. All right. Cool.
Wait. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, we're just kind of ad hoc in this. So the idea with this is having like a very similar kind of layout. Of course, we're going to be making this look a lot better than what it currently is right now. But the basic premise is having like each one of the different countries actually listed here. They're set up in their own kind of individual widget. But we wanted to have, very similar to XCOM, where the individual countries would actually show their current funding and then what their difference is for depending on your affinity. And also, additionally, in these buttons, you'll actually see like current contracts that are actually available for them, so you can quickly select those right away, and you'll be able to jump into those either accepting or rejecting or canceling out those missions, and unfortunately, maybe failing those missions. There will be missions that you will fail. We don't want to actually have it so that you have every mission that you can ace unless you're on like easy mode, for example. We do want to make this challenging and difficult. There will be meteors that you will miss in your campaign, and you will lose out on funding.
For you. That's not going to happen.
That is not going to happen.
I mean, where's the fun? Yeah, where's the fun in that anyway?
Exactly.
There's no tension when you get everything done perfectly.
Yeah. So with the funding, in relation to that is all of these are going to be updated like every month. So as you have like an end of the month report, then you have like an additional like total at the end of the month, and that's going to be accumulated into whatever current amount that you have related to your I guess we should call it like cryptocurrency bank, or whatever the currency that Solar Warden would actually have. I imagine it would be something like cryptocurrency, wouldn't it? For like Black Ops projects or something like similar to that. I don't know what a blockchain allow for, even though maybe it's a secretive blockchain, so it's not an exposed public ledger.
Yeah.
But something similar to that regard, anyway. So your currency, whatever you have currently left over, that'll be transferred over at the end of the month, and then of course new missions will and new contracts will be available as you go as well. So I also had the contracts menu. This was just like a small little mock-up that I actually did here, which was an idea where, and I guess this is kind of a spoiler, you'll actually have the availability to actually construct like a space elevator for one of the countries. So you have like a mission here, whatever the name of the actual mission would be available that you can actually grab, and then when it must be completed, quick little picture of what it would be, description of it, what it unlocks here. You can see elevator unlocks boobies. That's the bird boobies, not don't be a 12-year-old. And then of course like the country that it's associated with, and there'll be more information here about like who it actually also deals with at the same time. So maybe like if you're doing this for the United Kingdom, maybe this would affect like France or Germany, or maybe Japan would be sad that they couldn't actually build the space elevator. But of course you're doing this on their behalf, and with the science behind actual space elevators, you need to construct them to be the most efficient on the equator, and that'll be up to you to set up where you wanted to actually set it up. So if it's actually in Brazil, for example, you'll need to actually maybe negotiate with Brazil and try to figure out which contracts you can do for them to up your affinity to then build it for the United Kingdom, or maybe it's like a joint effort or whatnot. We'll expand on that as we get further with the available contracts. Available contracts with these as well. These will pop up for the availability if you detect like meteors that are actually coming in. So if meteors are coming in and they're going to be impacting, let's say like Japan, those are like standard contracts that you're going and doing defense. Those can actually, if you don't need to accept them if you're just going to actually just go and destroy the meteor right away. It's just assuming that you're already actually doing it. But if it's something specific, like it's a time sensitive thing, like you only have 21 days to accept this contract and construct a particular facility for a particular country. Let's say it's like a nuclear silo or even that space elevator that you guys saw. You'll have like a limited amount of time in order to invest into that particular country in order to then construct that particular base. Or you can do it yourself if it's a space-based facility, such as like a dry dock or whatnot. And you can choose to set it up in a geosynchronous orbit around those individual planets. But yeah, that is the funding and the contracts kind of in a nutshell, actually.
Yeah, and we've got a question.
Sure.
Give me this. Playing the demo, I noticed there was a missile lock warning. Would we have flares, chaff, and PDCs? Well, in the demo, you already have flares to avoid the spikes worm shoots at you.
Mm-hmm.
They currently don't work on the Icarus because that is bugged, but on the Tempest and on the Helios, you can use them to evade the missiles.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the answer to that is a resounding yes. You will have that stuff.
The chaff actually fire for the Icarus, but they collide into the ship's collision, and they actually kill the chaff. So I need to sort that out, and that's a minor bug that I'll also pump out in the patch for the demo. So thank you guys for submitting that bug for me, and I'll look at addressing that right away. But yes, so in relation to, I can actually, let's jump into a ship and I'll show you guys. Let's grab the Helios because that already works. Right now we have a placeholder VFX for that. We'll actually be doing some cooler VFX for it. But you can see here as I'm shooting out down over there,
Warning.
my little chaff.
Meteor cluster detected.
And that actually creates collision spheres for missiles if you're actually, and we'll actually display that better with the VFX. So the idea is you actually want to actually break the line of sight. So you can imagine, look at my UI here for a second. You can see the two bars that we have for both your energy, and we'll actually talk about this later. We're actually going to be moving throttle instead of this blocky thing that we have down in the bottom middle here, where you can ramp up, ramp down, as you see there, and then afterburner. We're going to actually be moving the throttle over on the left-hand side for that left semicircle. But anyway, so you can imagine here, as I'm shooting out here, the kind of radius is around that kind of size. So you actually want to have your chaff, and we'll set up the chaff so that they actually fire a little bit better backwards. That will actually help break line of sight for the missiles that are actually incoming for you. So if you're actually like facing head-on against the worm and he's shooting at you, the flares might not actually work because you're actually flying directly ahead. So you're actually going to want to actually veer off and away from wherever you're flying toward, and then fire your flares out behind you, and then actually have that block the line of sight of those incoming spikes. It's also not just the alien spikes. Some of the alien spikes we're going to have more silicoid and even the crystalline entities that will be coming into the game later on. Will be firing their homing missiles, but as you get further on down the campaign, when you eventually run into the Aegis of Terra and the countries that have withdrawn their funding against you, they're actually going to be sending up ships against you. So human ships are actually going to be coming after you as well, firing their own missiles. So you're actually going to want to make sure that you arm your ships with countermeasures when you actually start running into those guys. So thanks for the question. We got any more?
Nope. Right now, only comments.
All right. All right. Yeah. What was the other thing I wanted to touch on? Oh yeah, the HUD interface. Like I was saying before, I wanted to move the throttle and the display of the throttle over on the left-hand side there. That way you can actually see that kind of more in real time what your throttle is currently doing, and I also want to actually have a display. For those who haven't actually seen, here I'll jump out of turret mode. So we do have, where can I actually reference? I'll look at something so I can have a frame of reference. Ooh, that roll is really laggy. Oh, there we go. We have a Tempest. Yeah, let's look at you. So, as you guys know, we are 6 degrees of freedom. That means, you know, any direction that you want to travel in, and no matter what setup you want to do. So, you know, I can strafe to the right, I can strafe to the left. And right now we have kind of a very minimal like space dust to show you, you know, and it's streaking across your screen here what direction you're currently traveling in. We want to add additional HUD elements because that's not very clearly represented on your screen. So we wanted to actually include something where it's actually showing like a two-dimensional view of like some visible lines. Unfortunately, I don't have the mock-up here. But you would have like on the top of your screen and on the sides, you would actually have these vertical bars showing you where you're actually going to be moving up and down relative. So you'll actually be being able to track where you're going. And then same thing also with depth. Very similar to Elite Dangerous when you're actually going into like the hyperspace travel or whatever their fast travel is called. You actually have that same kind of depth meter, and we'll be providing that as well when you're actually either going like forward and backwards. So in that way, like right immediately, you will have like a visible way to see which kind of direction you're actually traveling. Like we have the visible display here down in the bottom left here, where you're actually seeing like which way you're actually thrusting and what direction and how fast you're traveling, but I don't think many people actually use that. So we want to make that a lot more apparent. That way we can actually clear out that kind of clunky bit of the HUD. Also with that too, in case like you guys don't actually realize, we have left control, and that'll be left. I pressed the left trigger. The left stick down on the controller, that actually activates your Newtonian flight mode. So that allows you to actually like go and use your maneuvering thrusters to push yourself in a direction, and then you can let go of it rather than actually additively constantly trying to accommodate that for your ship. So you can actually, like, for example, I'll go into normal flight here. Let me line myself up to the Tempest here. Going into normal flight, and then press left control, and now I'm actually drifting in that direction. So we wanted to, with that, have the display of that show up in the HUD a lot better. We'll actually show you which flight mode you're actually in, and you also see like the visible thrusters. Maybe we'll change them to like a different color, so that way it's a visual cue for you to realize like, hey, when I'm actually trying to thrust forward, then it's actually not turning on.
Didn't we want to include maneuvering thrusters anyway?
Well, sure, but what I'm saying is like your thrusters will change like to a different color. That way you understand right away that you're in a different flight model.
A different mode. Yeah. Sure.
That way it's like a visual cue right away for you. And of course, also with that relative, we also wanted to have like research technology to upgrade and boost your engine capabilities, so you'll be able to fly a little bit faster, and maybe have longer afterburner fuel for a period of time until you drain your energy. That kind of stuff as well. So we'll add all those on top of that. Cool. We touched a little bit about time dilation. Oh yeah. So the two last things that we can actually talk about. Well, I guess that actually leads us into customization. So with customization, the hangar currently is not fully re-enabled. But the hangar itself, this will be set up also for the dry docks as well. I've cleared out like how I've kind of refactored how this currently worked.
Warning. Meteor cluster detected.
we wanted to have all of the different weapons depending on like where they're actually loaded out. Those will actually properly populate the list here. I disabled them now because we disabled a lot of the hangar functionality, and we refactored a lot of this to work properly in multiplayer. We had to do some jump around things to make it work. But you'll be able to actually swap out like all of your different weapons. There'll be different hard points where you're actually selecting different equipment, so in that way you can actually like select things like shield generators or different engines to power your ship differently, and we'll expand on everything and show you guys like what areas of your ships you can actually modify, and we'll do that as well when we build that out also for the corvettes and the larger vessels. But on top of that as well, with customization, oh yeah, we also had I think I had here, maybe I can actually pull it up.
Well, and of course there's also the pin-up customization.
That is exactly what I was going to. Where did I have that mock-up? Oh my goodness, I lost it.
You lost the mock-up?
I lost the mock-up.
No.
I think I actually moved it away from my pictures. But yeah, so the decals that we had for, especially for your Kickstarter pledges, we have the pinup models that you're actually going to be doing, and being able to place those in certain locations around your ship. So for instance, with the Icarus, we'll show this on as we go further in development here. You'll be able to actually like place certain like the World War II pinup models. Oh, my camera's really laggy. And there'll be some set locations where you can actually put them. You can either like put them on the main wings or like the back wings, back in these locations here. And then also we wanted to include additional decals, such as like the where were they? The tiger, the shark teeth. Have the shark teeth on the front end of that, and have that loaded in. And those will be able to actually be placed in set locations. So you'll have availability to plug in different ones on different locations. And we also wanted to have an inclusion for like markers on the ship of like how many kills like a certain pilot has next to the cockpit. That would be actually a fun one. So in that way you can actually see like different ones for Silicoid, or different ones for like killing Aegis of Terra ships if the AI actually killed it and not you, for example. And that would be an awesome little addition that we wanted to plug in with those guys. Oh, speaking of like detailed things with the AI, so one thing I wanted to add on for the RTS element with the ships, with currently when you're actually focusing on a fleet and you have like your visibility for the
cluster detected.
For the actual fleet, we wanted to be able to allow you to change, like for example the flagship. So instead of like just zooming in on the first ship that's in the fleet group here, we'll have like a button here where you can actually like assign like a new flagship. That way all the ships that are actually around it are trying to centralize their attack around whatever flagship is there. We also wanted the availability to actually click on individual ships here, and then that should actually change your camera view to then focus in on that other ships, and that way you can actually really admire what customizations you put on it. Like, for instance, if you had the Thunder Squadron skin set up, Kickstarter exclusive, on the Tempest, for example, then you can actually zoom in on the actual Tempest himself and see all the customizations that you've done for that. And all of those as well, if you're actually jumping into a cooperative campaign, those skins that you are applying to those vessels. So let's say I jump into Andrew's game and I'm actually a part of his game, and I'm customizing one of the Tempest ships. I can apply my skin to that Tempest and be like, hey, check me out. I have this awesome Kickstarter exclusive skin, and you don't. And you can actually share that and show that off to your friends in your cooperative campaign. But also further to this as well, with zooming into the ships as well, we wanted to expose more of the fleet commands and actually go more granular, if that's a good term to use. The individual fleets that you have zoomed into it. Let's say I can zoom out and we'll kind of talk about it. Let's say, for instance, I actually sent Alpha Fleet to go engage this meteor cluster. When they're actually in combat, what we want to do is actually have their... we want to be able to allow you to micromanage the individual fleets. So let's say, for example, the Helios is kind of better built for like longer range combat. We'll expose it so that way you can actually order individual AIs to perform certain maneuvers or perform certain like attack patterns or move in directions and locations that you actually want to do. So in that way they'll actually you'll have more of a finer control with your AI if you so want to actually choose to have them fight certain things. So for example, like now that I'm engaging on this meteor cluster, let's say I can control click multiple Icarus here, and I would right click and say attack specifically this meteor instead. Or I can actually use tell them to move to certain locations, so they would actually have like a planar movement behavior, very similar to Homeworld, and do certain things. Or like, for instance, I could say, these Icarus, I want you to defend specifically the Helios. So if there's enemies that actually come out and try to attack the Helios, then those Icarus would redirect their fire specifically at those individual silicoid or whatever enemies that you end up actually fighting. But yeah,
and we would also want you to give some basic commands when you are actually controlling the ship, so that you have some basic wingman control there as well.
Exactly. So when you're actually, we can kind of talk about that. When you're actually taking control of a ship, let's take control of the Helios, for example. So whatever ship, it doesn't have to be the flagship, but whatever ship that you then take control of within that fleet group, that ship that you then control will automatically become the flagship. So in that way, they're actually going to be following you and receiving orders directly from you, or whatever you're actually wanting to tell them to do. And for instance, like maybe I want them to attack that particular meteor, or I can, target this guy, and we'll have keyboard commands or controller commands to say, hey, attack my target. And also in the HUD, you'll currently we don't actually have any of the displays of the ships that are in your fleet. Right now you have to tab back to your PDI, but we'll set that up so then that way you can actually have like a way to see what current ships are actually in and alive in your fleet. So you'll be able to say, hey, Icarus or Tempest number 2 or number 1, attack my target.
And also maybe as an attack upgrade, to directly allow you to telepresence between ships instead of always going back to the PDI menu.
Exactly. So all of these functionalities that are kind of basic right now in the demo, we're going to be expanding on them and going further, much further into how you'll be able to handle these. Hi, Larva. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Before we pass it by, we had a question about in multiplayer mode, how does saving and sharing designs work when they're in multiplayer?
So saving designs, I'm assuming that they mean like kind of loadouts, right?
Yeah, that's what I get out of this as well.
Okay. So saving saving your campaign in general will actually be handled by the host. So whoever is actually the host, let's say I'm the host between Andrew and I, wherever I am currently in my campaign. Oh, where's his lasers going? That's crazy. Wherever I am in my campaign determines like where Andrew can actually like see what current things are actually happening. But if you wanted to save, we'll set up the availability to actually save variants. Very similar to like the MechWarrior games, where you can actually like save certain customizations. So if the rule sets are actually like if the rule sets are followed, then you can actually import that same kind of blueprint. So let's say I had like, you know, the Nova Tempest that actually has like a bunch of heavy lasers on it. I could actually try to actually import that into my game. But if in my campaign I currently don't have the laser technology actually unlocked, then there'll actually be an error related to that, saying like, oh, currently in the campaign lasers haven't been unlocked, try a different variant or something like that. So same thing with maybe with Andrew. Maybe he created like one because he's a big fan of the machine guns and the Gatling guns. Maybe he wants to equip some of the Tempests that are in the fleet currently with like just a bunch of Gatling guns. As long as and it'll actually check in the rule sets of the game, making sure that it's valid. That way you don't have, you know, people coming in and trying to cheat the variants. That will actually try to place all those onto the actual ship if you go like load variant. So for instance, let's jump out of here and just give like kind of an idea of what we would see. So in the hangar, you would actually have like a button here that would say like load variant or load customization, something of that kind. And then whatever you name that particular variant, you can actually click and press that, and that would try to then load it onto the ship that you have currently selected. So it would filter, of course, for well, in this case it would be like the Icarus. So if I had an Icarus equipped with whatever weapons, then I can try to load that variant in the campaign. Hope that answers your question. Alright, let's escape out of that. Oh, some errors. The fleet waypoint didn't get disabled. Okay. That's a bug that I gotta fix. Alright. Oh, so the last couple things that I wanted to touch base on. And we're actually kind of running over the time that we were talking about, but that's okay. That's fine that this is going on longer. Oh wow! Oh, I just checked the funding. We're currently up at 40,435. Thank you so much, everybody, for backing. Yes, this is fantastic.
So awesome.
It's way better to go over our funding goal, and I'm glad you guys are willing to commit to all this as well. Right. So what I wanted to touch base on was kind of in relation to what we were talking about with the affinities with the different countries. Sorry, I'm trying to find where I lost it. Nope, that wasn't it. There we go. All right, concept art. Sorry. There we go. Satellites. There we go. All right. Are these showing up?
Satellites.
Yeah, perfect. Those are showing up. So we have all the concepts kind of ready for the defense platforms. That was one thing that, of course, we didn't get time to finish off as well. We have a prototype of some of the satellites right now. We have a white box of it. Besides the waypoint satellites that you saw currently in the demo, you can actually deploy some of these other ones. I'll actually show you the 3 different ones. Let's open up this guy. So the idea behind this, very similar to ships where you have like modular customization with it. We wanted to have the same kind of modular setup also for the satellites. So that way you can actually start from like a very basic satellite ring and then actually attach different things to it, right? So you have like your primary plugs on the top and bottom, and then you have like these little maneuvering thrusters in order to have it orient and do different things. But you can actually set them up with like different things with like the sensor suites, or setting it up as like a waypoint satellite. and you would have like this communication hub attached to the actual bottom of it as well. And then that way that allows you to have a sphere of influence. And this is kind of an important factor that the demo doesn't actually touch on, is if you have those communication modules equipped onto satellites, or let's say capital ships, because those will be, or not capital ships, I should say corvettes and frigates, those vessels large enough to actually hold these things are able to actually relay their communication, and they must have line of sight back to Zenith Station, and Zenith Station being your primary like HQ or headquarters, where your commander consciousness is actually being projected out to whatever ship that you're actually trying to take control of. So long-winded explanation aside, if those communication modules, or the satellite that actually has this equipped, if those are destroyed and you have nothing else in that area and nothing else in that sphere of influence to be able to actually have any sort of communication to them, you're going to lose the availability to telepresence and command fleets in those locations. You can visibly still see them, like let's say, you know, I would jump into game here. Let's say, for instance, on some of the Waypoint satellites, let's say I lost North America. Ooh, that'd be terrible. If I didn't have any direct communication in a sphere of influence around that particular area, I lose all communication with the fleets that are in that dark zone, right? But I might want to risk that for, let's say, for instance, there's actually like a meteor that's coming in, and that would I would need to actually send fleets in those locations in order to stop that, but I don't have any communication or waypoints set up there anymore. I'm just going to have to let them go and hope for the best. You might run into that situation, so you got to make sure that you have your, I guess, supply line of communication set up so that that way you don't have these dark zones that would stop you or inhibit you from being able to plant your consciousness in those ships, or lose like total communication with those ships anyway. Right, let's go back to that. And of course, you also have like visual sensors and radio and laser sensors, so that way you can actually like peer out into space if you're actually scanning certain parts of the sky, being able to early detect some of the smaller meteor clusters that are coming in and things like that.
Watch the skies, so to say.
Watch the skies, exactly. But further to the actual ring, we're wanting to expand also to a larger cylinder, and we coined this version of the satellites. We called it the Morning Star, where you still have the bigger modules, but you're able to also equip additional side mounts as well. So maybe you have like smaller weapon mounts and then the larger weapon mounts on the top and bottom. But the main point of the Morning Star is to provide an energy source like ammo or some sort of energy fuel device, or maybe you wanted to store certain things in these particular cylinders. So these are satellites that you can set up for munition dumps if you wanted to, so that way you can actually have, like, for instance, fighters to go out to these locations and re-up and rearm on more missiles or different things like that. So you'll need to be conscious about where you're actually storing different munitions and munition dumps, and you'll have satellites to be able to provide for that, and the satellites themselves will also have like different weapons that would also take from that as well, in order to shoot down incoming meteors in those locations. So you'll be able to set them up with larger weapons or point defense weapons to ward off like incoming silicoid, or like giant missile platforms as well. And of course, with deploying these weapons up in outer space, you got to be very careful about where you're actually putting them. If you're putting them in areas of countries that are actually of lower affinity toward you, if they find out that those are actually in those locations above, let's say for instance I'm in bad relations with China, for example, if I deploy a defense satellite above them, then they'll treat that as like a hostile setup or a hostile action, and they'll like lose more and more affinity, and they'll probably demand me to actually move that defense satellite until I, gain better relations with them as you go forward. Further to the Morning Star, we actually also have the concept for what we call the Daedalus. This thing is like a giant weapons platform that allows for like 3 Morning Stars to be equipped onto it. And then, of course, you have your bigger communications relay or a more advanced sensor suite that can actually peer out further deep into the solar system and find out like more about like what's going on in the campaign. That'll be core element to the actual main story, and we'll expand on that as we go forward. I don't want to spoil it here, so you'll have to stay tuned for that. But we can we'll skip ahead to these. Oh yeah, we had so for upgrades as well on the satellites, we also had different styles and different designs for example, like different solar panels that you would actually equip onto the satellites. So you'd have like more advanced like hexagonal ones or different tiered flat ones that are kind of basic, and they would be rotated to always absorb like the sun's energy. Different weapon mounts. We have concept art for all of that. This one is more breaking down what the actual Daedalus kind of looks like from like the top view, a perspective view, and then where things are actually mounted and where they're hatched. We have storage units as well for like computer and also munitions. Those will all be stored here, and you can actually send like transports to and from like different locations to rearm and re-up them, so that way you have like fighters to be able to go in, or even corvettes to go to those locations, and then drones will move over the munitions to rearm, like set up like missiles back on your ships, and then that way you have to maintain keeping them up and active. But further to that, actually, before we get to the Daedalus and showing this out, oh yeah, here is more of a kind of a blueprint view and basic framework to show what the inners of the Daedalus would kind of look like. And then here's one with a big ass weapon mounted on that. Or you'd even have like a fixed weapon on this thing, so like a giant railgun set up on this guy. But where was it? Oh yeah, here was an idea that we were actually playing around with, which was having Morning Stars being able to be linked together. We're not quite sure if we're wanting to go with this kind of setup. This might be very difficult for us to implement, and to have like these attachment setups and then all of them to be working in unison. But that would actually be really fun to prototype out, and we'll submit that into the alpha build. So if you guys have alpha capabilities with the game, we'll actually probably trial this out with when we get actually the defense satellites up and running. We'll see what you guys think with that. We're also very we were fans of Guardians of the Galaxy with the idea of like this giant like net shield, where you actually have these for our example, we would have multiple Morning Stars that would be attached together, and you would have different sections of them, so they'd be creating this kind of like umbrella shield, so that they would stop any kind of like fire that's coming in from the frontal direction. So we were playing around with like concepts with that idea. That would be a lot of fun. Some advanced satellites that we wanted to do was this one we actually called. This was not called the Damocles. It was called the Sentinel. We got to change the name there. It was the Sentinel that would actually be set up further in deep space, and that'll be actually viewing where these actual aliens are coming from and why they're actually like attacking us. That's going to be a main satellite that you actually have to deploy and send out into deep space. But let's skip ahead from all these. Here we go. This is what I wanted to talk about. So with your different affinities with the different countries, we had the three kind of major ones in relation to the first world countries that you would be actually doing. We wanted to, if you purchased these satellites and had them be launched up into orbit by particular factions or particular countries, I should say, you'll notice that you'll actually see a visual difference between them as well. So, like, depending on their particular, I guess you could say, country manufacturer, you would actually see different visible differences and just cosmetic differences between them. That way you can actually have... this kind of ties back into the research behavior that I was talking about, which was the let's say, for instance, you developed a Russia laser technology, for example. If you actually purchased more satellites, or let's say equipments and components from Russia, then they're actually going to be a lot more effective with each other, and you'll actually get some stat bonuses related to that. There'll be small, minor stat bonuses, but every little bit counts, right? But if you're actually setting it up with, like, the United States satellites, then they'll just be kind of like, there's no additional bonus with it. But if you're equipping, like, let's say, like the Russia lasers with the Russian satellites, then you'll actually get an additional perk, an additional bonus. Let's say they're more energy efficient, for example, and they'll actually use less energy as you're pairing them all together. And so the visual differences between, like, the United States, you'll have the visual differences of, like, Russia and then, like, China, for instance, and you'll have, like, cool decals on them as well. So you'll see, like, the visual differences between all of those different ones versus, like, the base design that we had here. And of course, we had the same setup also with the Daedalus, and that's kind of why I wanted to show that last. Where was it? There we go. So here was an idea of, like, the US variant of the Daedalus. This one would be a Russia version, and this one would be like a Chinese version where it's, like, very rounded, very sleek. Russia's more kind of base and utilitarian. USA has their kind of, like, sharp angles on everything. And you would be able to customize them with additional weapons and plug them in however you wish. And yeah, that's about it with the defense satellites. Let me know if you guys have any questions about that with the defense satellites, or anything with the campaign, or where we're going to be going also with how you'll need to defend the planet. I guess the last thing that we can actually talk about as well was also, so these are, okay, I do not hold the rights for any of these things. These are all references. These are not concept images. I'll say that now. But I'll show them only for, like, a quick couple seconds. We have the idea for the silicoid to actually do some more, like, crystalline kind of entities. Again, this is not our concept art. This is just a reference picture. But we have the ideas of actually very similar to the spikes that are actually growing on the silicoid worm, to have their not that one, to have the ones that I'll show this one. Here we go. Have the crystal structures actually forming a new evolution of those silicoid. I'm actually in talks right now with a good buddy of mine who actually did some of the concept art for Solo Warden already, as you guys probably have seen. So we had the grub here, and one alien that hasn't been done in 3D yet, the shrimp. We actually wanted to get him on as well to actually look at doing more concept art for the later silicoid as well, and we'll be talking about the crystalline entities with him, and having him do more of those advanced ones as well. So yeah, with the crystalline ones, this guy's not one. This guy's actually a little walker. He's going to actually be a smaller one. He's going to be kind of like the size of a larva. But he's going to be actually hugging onto the sides of the meteors and actually spitting the same kind of plasma blast that the larvae do, and then other forms of blasts as well. Maybe even some of the spikes will come out of him. Maybe we'll have actually like an evolution of him where he's actually shooting homing spikes on you. But he's actually going to be grappling onto the sides of the meteors as well. But he'll be able to actually jump off and actually fly himself in space. But he's primarily going to be trying to equip himself onto the side of it. But with the crystalline entities are actually going to be more better suited against laser technology. So you're going to want to actually still keep in reserve more of the I guess you could say primitive technology, like your Gatling cannons, and then even like railguns, anything that is more like ballistic based, so that way you can actually still shatter those crystalline entities rather than them actually like absorbing more of your particle beams or laser cannons, and then they just charge themselves up and then blast back at you. So you got to make sure to balance your fleet between your high tech and low tech, and making sure that you're having differences and availabilities of multiple different things at your disposal. And of course, there will be also silicoid that would be set up to be used as like, they'll have their own countermeasures themselves. So they'll have like smaller, I guess you could say, very similar to larvae. They'll have an evolution where they'll actively be trying to shoot down your missiles. So you'll need to keep that in mind as well. So you don't want to actually like missile boat yourself or boat yourself too much in either one direction. You need to make sure that you're setting up your fleet and having a nice, good balance of munitions across the board. Lasers, missiles, machine guns or Gatling guns or anything ballistic. Making sure you have all those kind of lined up. That way you can take on anything that comes your way. Whew. All right. I think that... oh, we got a question here.
Yeah, we got questions. Is there going to be a supply limit like StarCraft limiting the total number of ships or satellites?
That's going to be very likely because we don't want to have like a... We'll need a pop cap. You can't have unlimited ships in orbit around the planet.
Yeah, that's no CPU will be able to handle that.
That number is not determined quite yet because we still have to do our optimizations and make sure that we have like LODs set up. So like the number could be anywhere between 100 to whatever. But we'll let you know as we get further down, and we'll actually set up like a population cap limit for that.
Warning. Meteor cluster detected.
Is there going to be tech which requires a capture of a silicoid, like getting some of the stuff as weaponry or defenses?
Yes, and that's part of the story campaign. But I don't want to go further into that, as we will keep that for a later update.
Yeah.
Fantastic, guys. I think that about covers it. And thank you all so much. It's been a fantastic Kickstarter campaign. We definitely brought it to over the finish line. I'm super ecstatic that we got this thing funded. Thank you guys so much again for all of your support. It's been a dream come true of mine to finally be able to launch an independent game and being able to make something like this for you guys. Thank you again so much. You guys are the ones that made this possible. Thanks again.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right. If there's no other further questions, thanks again, guys. We're going to be bowing out now. This has been a fantastic campaign, and we're going to be looking at celebrating. We still have actually we're still like just an hour out right now. Oh yeah, there it goes. It just clicked over. 67 minutes to go. If you haven't yet, if you're watching this stream, please consider pledging your support. We still want to reach as high as we can. Any additional funding that you do definitely helps. It helps us with infrastructure. It helps us with also reaching out to even better freelancers and even hiring additional staff to be able to help us out with this and being able to pump this out to you guys sooner rather than later. Thank you again so much for your support. And thank you, Christopher Escalante, for providing such awesome music. We're going to be bowing out with the Kickstarter theme that we had from him. Whoops. Whoa. Sorry about that. All right. Thank you again, everybody. It's been a wonderful stream, wonderful Kickstarter campaign. Sorry, I can't thank you guys enough. This has been fantastic. I love you guys, and we'll see you guys in the next developer update. We will catch you guys next time.
Till then, folks, now it's time for party.
Well, I'm gonna go take a drink. We'll leave on Chris Escalante's music here, which will play out for about a minute. Thanks again, guys. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Solar Warden, you are clear to engage.